Welcome, crew, guys, gals, ghouls, friends, fiends, foes, those of you who may be listening to us beyond the Omniverse tonight. Secure your tinfoil hats, buckle down tight, and hold on loosely as we soar over the rocky tops of the La Platas on a rocky mountain high and get sucked into the vortex of the Four Corners, snugly at mile marker 420. It is Saturday, March 16th. Sunday, March 17th, for those of you across the pond and beyond. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you, and welcome to We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. I'm your host, TessaTNT, and we are broadcasting live from the Mile High Clubhouse tonight. I'm so glad that you guys could join us this evening. I hope you had an awesome week, and that you're having a very nice St. Patrick's Day weekend. If you're listening live right now, you may be listening to us on KPNL Radio, which you can find at KPNL Radio at kpnl-db.com, as well as eTalk Radio, which you can find at etalk.tv/radio. We're also doing live on Facebook under We Are Paradox Media, YouTube under We Are Paradox Media, as well as Twitch for all our Twitchers out there. Our friend Jonathan Alexander is still working on our channel that's supposed to broadcast worldwide, so that's pretty exciting. Otherwise, if you like to listen in your free time, whether you're working it or working out, just feel free to tune in to us wherever you may listen to your podcasts. So I have a treat for all my guys and gals out there. Tonight we will be talking to and getting to know the Vortex detective, Dan Shaw. So some people spend their life in search of the guru on the mountaintop. Dan Shaw has experienced the reverse. Teachers have come to him. At age 7, Dan began doing gazing meditations and having psychic experiences. At 14, Dan was watching the dark night sky when a UFO flashed its lights from quite nearby below the horizon. And then in 1985, at 21 years old, a midnight visit from an enchanting stranger eventually led Dan from the San Francisco area to Austin, Texas, where he began studying alchemy. In 1992, due to a series of divine interventions, Dan Shaw began to specialize in geomancy, a branch of alchemy focusing on the subtle energies of the earth. Dan travels extensively in the U.S. and abroad, researching sacred places and local vortex experts, and he corresponds with researchers all over the world. Dan Shaw earned a Bachelor of Science in Geography in 2001. He has also authored a number of books on vortexes, including Vortex Field Guide, North America. Oh my goodness. Hold on one second. Letters from the Vortex and U.S. Vortexes 54 miles wide, and Stonehenge gardening tips using earth energies in your garden. Dan Shaw can assess the subtle energies of your land, home, and business, and help to adjust the energetic field for greater harmony, health, and success. Dan is an extraordinary tour guide, leading groups to exotic locations. Dan Shaw is known for his enthusiastic presentation of complex ideas in ways that are fun and easy to understand for audiences of all ages. His live public presentations encompass a wide array of scientific and paranormal subjects, exhibit a collection of inspiring, beautiful images and visionary maps, and involve audiences in engaging participatory experiences. Welcome, Dan, and thanks so much for coming to hang out with us tonight.
Hi. Thanks so much for having me. I'm just thrilled to be here.
Oh, my camera is being so weird tonight. It's been a long time. We were talking about that earlier. Around 2018, you were saying it felt like just last year, but I know it's been a while.
I'm having a little audio dropout from you too. So a little bit of technical glitch, probably due to my energy field interfering with the electronics.
Right. Everything seems to be showing up good over here.
Okay, good.
Okay, so let's go back to the beginning for those of our listeners that haven't been here before, how it all started. So can you fill us in on,
Mm-hmm.
how you got into meditation in the first place at such a young age?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. It's hard to say it any more concisely than you did in the introduction, but we can certainly fill out the details a little bit. Uh, there's a type of meditation, number of different kinds of meditation that all fall under the type of meditation which is uh, gazing. And in my case, uh, I was gazing at a light fixture. It was a spherical light fixture, just in a similar way that people might gaze at a mirror or at a candle flame in a kind of a gazing meditation. And I was in a dark room, and the my light fixture. I was lying in bed, and my light fixture on the ceiling was a sphere, and I had a rheostat, and I could turn down the brightness till it was just barely visible. And so I was gazing at that. I discovered that after a short period of time, it would actually seem to vanish. And only later did I find that this type of gazing meditation has its own name. It's named after a fellow named Gansfeld or Gansfeld. So it's called the Gansfeld effect. And you can achieve a similar thing by gazing at the blue sky or with a couple ping pong ball halves to give you a uniform field of vision. And then it's very much like snow blindness. After gazing at this uniform field for a period of time, your brainwaves change and you enter into an expanded state. And none of this I knew at the time, but I did start meditating very young and looking forward to going to bed at night when I could do this. And shortly after, around that time, I started having a couple psychic experiences, but they weren't um, earth shattering. They were uh, maybe questionable. Thought occurred to me, and then something happened. What was that happened? Was it, did I foresee that the catcher was going to miss that pitch, or did I foresee that the certain number was going to be called on the cakewalk? Was that, what was that? So when that happened, then I was very much alert to what's going on underneath that people maybe aren't taking fully seriously, especially in my family of origin. Uh, Magic was something that was not real in my family of origin, so I kept real quiet about it. So that's how I started on meditation, and I there were a number of pivotal events in my life that led me to the study of earth energies. And it's kind of a long and circuitous story in a way, but it was real clear to me that this is an assignment from my guides and masters. So at a certain darkest night of my life, these maps were brought into my attention, these maps of sacred places, which now I call Vortex maps. So I had been studying since about 1986, been studying with a channeled ascended master who called himself Father Andre, and I've been studying alchemy in so many different ways: meditation, body work, dance, rebirthing. So this is around 86, 87. And then shortly thereafter came into contact with the Vortex maps. And so for me, the study of the vortexes and the maps is a type of alchemy. So I'm doing Vortex maps as a type of alchemy and as a way of perfecting ourselves and harmonizing the planet. And over 30 years, I've grown more sensitive to what I call earth energies or vortex energies, but it definitely didn't start out that way. If that begins to answer your question.
Yeah, where did you, you might have said, and I might have missed it, but where did you get these maps?
I said they were delivered to me, or I was pretty vague about it, but to be more precise, at a certain point in my life, I was just collecting bits of information here and there, pre-internet. It was tough to get New Age metaphysical books. Somewhat, you kind of had to chase them down, go to the libraries, and use bookstores and what have you. And so, when I came across a book of particular interest that maybe I had to return to the library, I'd just make a photocopy of one page. And this was when I still lived in California, but by the time I got to Oregon, all I had was some photocopies. Um, but I was in Mount Shasta, and I was headed for Tahoe. And the person I was staying with said, "Hey, have you seen how Shasta is connected to Tahoe?" And that was another in a cascade of dominoes for me. But at that point, I looked back over these notes that I had photocopied over the years, and I did have one page from a book which, again, is kind of a focal point in the whole progression. It was the David Childress book, Anti-Gravity in the World Grid. And that book brought together a number of different researchers who had been studying the so-called Earth grid, which, just to give you a visual on that, the Earth grid, when it's flat, looks like so. You can see the equator down the center, and it's indicating the geometric pattern of the globe itself. So the Childress Anti-Gravity book featured a number of different researchers about this Earth grid system. And over the course of the next several years, I began to contact and reach out to everybody who was mentioned in that book. By that time, I was in Oregon, and I had the opportunity then to publish in a miraculous fashion, which again would take a certain amount of time to unroll, and we only have 3 hours, if I'm not mistaken. But this map here, this is the map showing how Tahoe is connected to Shasta in a geometric pattern of points around the Grand Tetons. I call it Earth Star North America. And at that time, I had the opportunity to publish not only this map, but also to reprint the Earth Star globe. This was going out of print, the Earth Star globe. So I reprinted it and published this map at the same time. And that's how I began to kind of walk sideways into the study of Earth energies. It was these maps were just kind of handed to me at my darkest hour. I was in the depths of despair about separation from my wife and young kids at the time, and grabbed onto this as a kind of a life raft that has carried me through these 3 decades.
That's amazing.
Brilliant people.
Yeah, you've done a lot of amazing work. I don't know if you could see in the chat over here, but Sovereign Cosmic Wildman said there was an episode that only aired twice on History Channel called Vile Vortices, where a team of scientists studying the Algerian Triangle Vortex, they vanished in a flash of blue light. Was that story true?
Very good, very good. I do know just exactly the one you're talking about there. And for just a second on screen at the very beginning, you can see that they do have a disclaimer that it is fiction. And the premise there is that, if I recall rightly, was that the protagonists were interfering with the energy at a vortex point in some way, which I don't exactly recall, but the way that resulted in a catastrophic explosion. if we're talking, I know we're talking about the same film there. So it was very much kind of Blair Witch documentary style there, but I do know the one, and it is fictional, and disagree with the premise as well.
Yeah, that would
So
be
thanks for asking.
yeah, pretty awesome, and make you question a lot if there wasn't that like you said, that premise at the very beginning that said this is fiction. That reminds me of another thing that I saw, I believe, on YouTube, and then later again on TikTok, or as Pelosi would say, tic-tac-toe. Where a guy used these sound waves, and it opened up a portal or a vortex to somewhere, I believe in Utah, maybe it was Moab or somewhere like that, and then supposedly he vanished, but pretty sure that could be fictitious as well. But yeah, Sovereign Cosmic Wildman says,
but from my
he was just saying that's the one.
I can't debunk it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to from a distance, definitely.
I'm wondering if I can somehow post this video he's talking about to my YouTube channel. Let me make a note of that. I'll look into seeing if I can post that on my YouTube channel. Via vortices, yeah. Nice.
Note for later.
Sure. Can I jump right to the end? Let me jump right to the end, if you don't mind. Some people aren't going to make it through the whole 3 hours. Then we'll kind of reverse the talk. I have my approach to studying these places which seem to have an effect on us, the so-called vortexes, energy points, ley lines, by whatever name. My personal approach is this. There's an infinite amount of energy available everywhere, all the time, for our physical healing, our psychic opening, and harmonizing the planet. And my voice cracked a little bit. I always repeat it, though. Let me say it a second time. There's an infinite amount of energy available everywhere, all the time, for our physical healing, our psychic opening, and for harmonizing the planet.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We can break that down further over the course of time. Since you spoke to me last, I should have updated my bio, because I have written and released a couple different books, which they're the hot topic, and that is American ley lines. Most people are familiar with the idea that there's these lines of energy, and when you're using the term leys or ley lines, you're referring to like an arrow straight alignment of natural and built monuments in a statistically significant number over a relatively short distance. Yeah, so it's not just a random pattern we're noticing in the landscape, but it's a natural and intentional human-built monuments along an arrow straight path. So that's ley lines. And then there's many variations on that, and so many, in fact, that I put together 2 different books on American ley lines. And the first is compiled from a couple dozen different researchers, and the second is compiled all from one remarkable researcher, and that one's called it's called Ley Lines and Earth Rings of America by Peter Champeau and myself. And so now there are a couple different books, completely or nearly completely different books about American ley lines. So pretty excited to share that. I think your listeners have their own experiences about paranormal things that seem to be directly associated with a place. And so, that's my little wedge or a little piece of the whole puzzle here, hopefully, is what's the place related part of the paranormal things people are experiencing. So bring it on. Bring on your questions or your questions.
Well, unfortunately, Cosmic Wildman, or Sovereign Cosmic Wildman, said he thought it was odd that the History Channel had erased it from their archives. And I was like, no way, that's whack. But yeah, he said he cannot find it anywhere. It's been fully scrubbed, but hopefully you'll have better luck so you can put that on your channel. Why would they do that? Especially if they marked it as could be fictitious or whatnot.
Well, as I say, they had the disclaimer at the beginning. I don't, I doubt that it's scrubbed per se. But there's all kinds of reasons why things do and don't air, I guess.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So tell me, if I could pose a question to you, what are you? What is your paranormal research lately revealing? I haven't been following you. I have to admit. Can you share something about your recent Vortex paranormal experiences or investigations? We maybe look at that part.
Okay. Well, since COVID hit, it's really been quiet as far as going to different houses and different locations and helping people with their paranormal stuff. We have had several UFO sightings here. They're saying everybody stay in your house, don't go anywhere, yada yada. But me and the kids would spend time out in the yard gardening or, getting our sunlight and our fresh air and stuff like that and try not to go mad. But yeah, we had several UFO sightings since then, and I did get a phone call from a lady. We were going to go help her, but then she backed out because her daughter didn't want us to come over. But yeah, it's been really quiet. This year I want to pick back up and not only do investigations, but start doing like paranormal tours, like interactive ones where you can use dowsing rods and the different like paranormal tools we have to investigate. So that would be pretty cool. But like you were saying with the ley lines and paranormal activity in vortexes or vortices, our group was actually contacted by a filmmaker, and they were asking about the ley lines and what activity we've had through this area, because I guess we are, near a ley line or whatnot. I think it's the 23rd or something like that. I can't remember which one they said, but it's pretty intriguing how that does line up. Like these grids and ley lines have ample activity.
Well, now remind me your location.
I'm in Bayfield, Colorado, so about 18 miles from Durango, Colorado. So it's southwest Colorado.
Okay, well, I see somebody also asked Sovereign Cosmic Wildman there. I see you asking, why do so many ley lines converge in Yuma? So without pulling up a bunch of maps or seeing the map that you're referring to there, I can kind of group those two questions together in a broader way. My research starts with electromagnetism, which I think of as being the Occam's razor, the simplest explanation of vortexes and why and how vortexes affect us. But it doesn't end with electromagnetism. I'm not just talking about electricity and magnetism. I'm talking about the entire electromagnetic spectrum. All of these things have potential to affect our physiology. And then there are things outside of the electromagnetic spectrum For example, seismic waves, gravity, these things. To my mind, these are all part of the vortex effect, more and less subtle and profound, and to including consciousness and magic and intention. So we begin there, and so there are many, many sources just alone, just looking at electromagnetism in the landscape, in the atmosphere, on the surface and below the surface, solar weather, all these components of electromagnetism. If we only begin there, then we look at what are these energies in the landscape, these, just starting with electromagnetism. And there are many, many different systems for mapping these. So there's this grid system here, which is a circle around the Grand Tetons. There's this grid system here, which is the Earth star globe. And there's just many, many more. And it's possible to use a version of Google Earth, which is Google Earth Pro. Not the one that you would use on your browser, but one that's free to download as an app from Google. You can use Google Earth Pro, and there are many, many files available for free of data points to use with Google Earth, where you can see many, many different systems for mapping the grid. So there'd be a cubical system, an octahedral system, a dodecahedral system, the combination of those systems. So it's virtually endless. So hard to address Yuma exactly without pulling up a bunch of lines. But if we look at Arizona, we can look at what would differentiate it from New Mexico, maybe would be those topographic features and subsurface features like ore and mineral deposits, changes in elevation, high points, caves, caverns, nuclear material, these kinds of things, water, flowing water, aquifers, all these things affect the electromagnetic field of the place, not necessarily just lines, but the landscape itself. And so, to my mind, then, these are everywhere. That's the kind of the long answer. I should have maybe jumped right to the end, which is that these energetic points are just everywhere, and so that you don't have to travel to go to some exotic vortex. But if you look around your own landscape, you will find that there are places that hold a certain energy which will be beneficial for you at a certain time, but perhaps not always. And then places that can enhance your own psychic practices or paranormal practices, psychic skills.
So, I was wondering, like, when you go out to look for vortexes or vortices, do you just use your inner ability to, seek out this energy? And if so, have you ever had somebody with you to use like dowsing rods or some other equipment to have like 2 or 3 different standards to go along with what you're doing to basically back you up?
Thanks for framing that question that way. I approach the location in many, many different ways, so that I would look at printed maps that might be available. I would look at air photos. I would look at soil maps, elevations, the things that I'd mentioned before, or in mineral deposits, mining activities, cultural heritage sites, maybe graveyards and churches. I would mark all these things on a map of whatever was my area of interest, and then be looking for patterns, looking for electromagnetic anomalies, which is where the magnetic field varies from the surrounding field. That is the definition of electromagnetic anomaly. And magnetic maps are available, so you can take a look at those as well. Those could be
Wow.
real useful. And from the skies, air photos, aeronautical charts show magnetic disturbances. In all these ways, we can bring all of these things together, and they reinforce each other. If I haven't even visited a place, let's say, and I'm looking on the map, I'm looking for all of these indicators that I call vortex markers. And I'm also looking for, and if somebody sends me a map, let's say, and they're sending me maps of certain stars, 5, 6, 7 pointed stars or whatever it might be, I'm looking for this confirmation on all these other levels. So if I'm finding a place that has many of these markers, and then there's some kind of elegant natural geometry that shows up to substantiate all those other indicators, that's very powerful for me. It's hard to argue with the geometry of this map, the perfection of these 19 points, mountains and bodies of water forming this nearly perfect circle around the Grand Tetons. Shasta, Sedona, Tahoe, down at the bottom, petrified forest. And you can see all that at vortexmaps.com. And this might be a good time to invite your listeners to send me an email. You can use the email address energy@vortexmaps.com. And when you do that, I'll send you a free ebook. And
Nice.
we'll figure out which one that might be. But link to download a free ebook for your listeners.
That's awesome. Well, Carol has a question here about the poles. So what about the poles? Do they affect the magnetism, or are we talking about another electromagnetism?
Well, in brief, let's say the Earth has two poles, has the geographic poles, and it has the magnetic poles. And what I'm most interested in is the unity, the essential unity between the magnetic, just roughly, we could just casually call it the electromagnetic field, Earth energies, however you want to couch it, the unity between geophysics and biophysics. That's what I'm interested in. So as we move our energy field, our aura, our electromagnetic field through the Earth's varying, over space and over time, Earth's varying electromagnetic field, we exist in this churning sea of electromagnetic energy. And as we move through it, it affects our physiology, our psyche, how we think and feel and perceive, and our psychic abilities. That's my premise. So it's important, of course, to distinguish between the geographic poles and the magnetic poles, which are a lot more complex, a lot more complex. I brought a little thing to show and tell about Earth's magnetic field, and this is what is called a magna probe. Let me see. I'll hold it up against this more white background here, and what we're looking at is it's a compass, but instead of being constrained in a north-south orientation, as we would want if we were trying to navigate with a map, this one's free to rotate in all three dimensions. And so what it actually shows is that the Earth's magnetic field has this component, which is, in this case, the North Pole is dipping down. So this is another way that you can actually confirm, one way that you can scientifically confirm variations in the electromagnetic field. And of course, this is not a very sophisticated tool. It's just a toy. But there are very sophisticated magnetometers where you can roll them across the ground. And again, you can find in a very small area a statistically significant variation in the electromagnetic field. And for example, the Confusion Hill vortex attraction in the redwoods of Northern California Research has been done there with a magnetometer showing just exactly that. So there's certainly ways that you can scientifically confirm parts of this hypothesis, and I like to think that what I'm presenting is the science behind Earth magic.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, and she was saying she meant the magnetic poles, and thanks, Dan. People keep talking about there's going to be a magnetic shift of the poles. Do you know anything about that?
Well, for certain, what we're looking at is the core of the Earth, and that has two parts. It has the solid iron, as far as we can tell, through waves bouncing through the Earth. The core of the Earth has two parts. There's a solid inner iron core that's actually solid and cooled, and then there's an outer core which is molten magma circulating, and we have models, we computer models of that dynamic, turbulent outer core of fluid magma. And so that magma is actually rotating at a different speed than the crust, but not to go too far off mark. What's happening is the magnetic north pole of the Earth right now it's wandering. It's not stable. It's wandering. It seems to be accelerating as it moves, northwest, and that's normal over geologic time that the magnetic poles would be moving. But what is also bound to happen over geologic time is that there may be a collapse of the magnetic field and reversal. So at the moment, we think that this the red part of the compass, that red part of the compass that we call north, is seeking. That's the part that's seeking the North Pole, if you follow me. So over geologic time, there are reversals of the north and south magnetic poles, and that's visible in the sea floor, the floor of the oceans, and you can actually see that on the Earth-star globe. It's indicated, the seismicity of the sea floors is indicated in red on the Earth-star globe. And so let me show you that. So what you find is that the geometry of the Earth-star globe, the geometry actually matches in many places where those deep sea trenches are. So where the seafloor, new seafloor is being born and spreading out in these deep sea trenches. The only exception would be in Iceland, where that's happening on the continent. But new seafloor is being born, and when we look at a magnetic map of the seafloor, we can see that magnetic reversal going on, and it just looks like a series of stripes of magnetism on the seafloor. So at some point in geologic time, maybe in our lifetimes, maybe not, the magnetic field will flip. And I do have kind of a favorite hypothesis about that when it does, we're all going to feel much better. Mm-hmm. There may be some chaos, though, in the interim, some instability in the magnetic field, and that might pose a problem for some of our technology, satellites and communication systems and such.
So here we have another question from Sovereign Cosmic Wildman. Have all vile vortexes been identified in the U.S., and why is there so much death near the Badlands, like an abnormally high amount of vehicle accidents and missing people?
Well, Sovereign Cosmic Wildman, definitely send me an email. We can have this longer conversation, and appreciate your contributions. So the vortexes have been called vile, and that would be dramatic and Hollywood-esque, I think. But for sure, anything that can heal can kill, and so anything that has any energy at all can be used for good or bad. So as you enter into a place, whether you're thinking of, I'm going to this energetic place, or you're just going to the doctor's office or whatever, it's good to be aware that, I'm feeling something. Is the place affecting me? Am I feeling good? Am I not feeling good about it? And even in a good vortex, perhaps not to stay too long, not to overstay, even if the energy is feeling good. I'm a believer that the place itself has a kind of a biorhythm, and so do we, and everybody's different. So places can be beneficial or they can be bad for you. So the so-called vortexes are in a geometric pattern around the Earth, where one is the Bermuda Triangle, and then one is the Devil's Sea in Japan, and these are legendary places of disappearances, of course. And I am a firm believer that our perception of our dimension of time and space is limited, and we do not see the whole picture, and that there are times and places where the veil between dimensions is thin, and these paranormal things happen, and entities come through and such. And so, yeah, I'm a firm believer. Yes, supernatural doorway. And then there are experiences of lost time and such. I have just so many credible testimonials from folks, aside from just my own experience and experiences and corroborated witnessed experiences and such of what we call glitch in the matrix. So not all in the USA, but in a geometric pattern around the globe, these so-called 12-file vortexes. But they can, I would say, be used for healing as well as, I would say, killing or life enhancing versus life draining purposes.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting how all that stuff works.
There's actually there's a second part to the question, and so we can pull that apart since we've got plenty of time. Because there's a high amount of magnetite in our brains, in every cell of our brains, and even more in our sinuses, we are subject to fluctuations and variations in the magnetic field, and it affects our perception and our cognition. So it's entirely possible that we could have ecstatic experiences in these varied electromagnetic fields that you might find, say, around a volcano, such as Devil's Tower. Or it's possible that you could have the opposite. You could have, psychosis-inducing experience, let's say, from the energy of a certain place. So it is true that electronic devices tend to experience a lot of interference around these energetic places, and that there are a lot of accidents around, let's say, the Oregon Vortex in Gold Hill. People get distracted, and it may have something to do with the energy of the place, for sure.
So did they get distracted, like, from what they're feeling or sensing?
Well, it's not some kind of esoteric feng shui. In Gold Hill, Oregon, the vortex is up this very narrow creek called Sardine Creek. So you're driving along the Rogue River on the one side, and there's all kinds of electromagnetic components going on where you have flowing water or body of water. And water itself is magnetic in the sense that it takes on the magnetic field of the surrounding environment. So it has a kind of magnetism to it. And the water always has some kind of dissolved minerals in it, so it's always got an element of electricity going on in it as well. So there's electrical currents going on. And then, of course, there's gold in Gold Hill, so you've got that element going on affecting the gravity and magnetism of the place. And then you've got these Sardine Creek running down this very steep cavern very much like Santa Cruz Mystery Spot, which is another one of these tourist attractions. Genuine Vortex, open as a tourist attraction. And so all of these things contribute to the overall electromagnetic field, and we're moving through it, and it's very highly dynamic as well. Let me bookmark you there for just a second. I'm going to put down the headphones for a moment. I'll be right back. Excuse me,
Okay.
if you don't mind.
No worries. Yeah, definitely Sovereign Cosmic Wildman. It is very interesting all around, I would say, as far as the North and South Pole and all these other vortexes going on. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you. I've had a lovely day. I'm in Southern Oregon, an hour north of Mount Shasta. It was 72 degrees today, just unseasonably warm. We expected that this is like a false spring here, but we've got all the daffodils and ladybugs and everything today.
Nice. I've heard a lot about Mount Shasta having a lot of UFO activity. Have you seen any of that?
I haven't personally seen any of it, but my mentor who developed this North America map, her name is Dorothy Leon, and she was etherically taken inside of Mount Shasta to the legendary city in there. She was. I could tell you more about Dorothy Leon in this map here, since you asked about Mount Shasta. Mount Shasta is one of these points, these 19 mountains and bodies of water that form a nearly perfect circle around the Grand Tetons. Dorothy was flying in a small airplane with her husband at the time, and she could actually see lines of energy connecting the mountains, and she was flying in the Pacific Northwest. But she had psychic sight, she could see that. And then in meditation, she was given that it was these 19 points around the Grand Tetons, and when she completed the circle, sure enough, every one of these points, the largest mountain or body of water in its region.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of stories about UFOs, as well as missing people and Bigfoot, etc. Like, so much activity up there. It'd be interesting to go check it out. Carol was wondering, is there a directory of these vile vortexes? Because she's staying away.
Fair enough. Fair enough. In fact, I'm working on a book now which is called Deadly Ley Lines. And it is, in my opinion, true that these lines are being used for good and for not good, for evil purposes, and that there are magicians working on both sides, that the war between good and evil in some regards is taking place on the battleground of the Earth grid. And that's, I guess, a controversial opinion in some circles. But we have to remember that everything is divine and it's all one. There's no separation between ourselves and the earth. There's no one point that's going to be the most powerful vortex in the world, unless that the most powerful vortex in the world is our own hearts. But the planetary vortexes are dynamic, they're fluctuating, they've got their own cycles of charging and discharging. They may be healthy for one person at one time and unhealthy for another person at the same time, or vice versa. I think we know more than we understand, and when you go into a place where the hair raises on the back of your neck, whatever, you know that it's not some place you necessarily want to spend time.
Definitely. I had another question as far as like the magnetic poles shifting, and I know this has happened before in the past. Everybody's like, everything's going to fly off the Earth. But I don't think so. I know it's been like slowly shifting in the past, but as it shifts, are also the ley lines and the vortex locations shifting?
I believe that's true. I believe that's true, that some places are getting more powerful, other places getting less powerful. There's a little bit of a rumor going around that Sedona doesn't have as much energy as it used to because the points are getting overrun. I don't know if I necessarily hold that as true, but I've heard it said. In general, it is true that places that are lesser tread by humanity have more of that refined energy where you can tap into the other dimensions. My teacher called them islands of infinity. I'm thinking maybe we should revisit the UFO question. Actually, because I don't want to sidestep that.
Okay.
Somebody's saying deadly ley line runs through Santa Barbara, Goleta. If I may just return to UFOs for a moment, then you can maybe bring me back. There is plenty of evidence that there's a correlation between UFO sightings and the grid, and there is an author who was a pilot in New Zealand named Bruce Cathie, Cathie, and he wrote a book and then a number of books about this grid system of his, which was based on squares. And he got into the subject because he was a pilot and he started mapping UFO sightings. And from the map of UFO sightings, he found they clustered along this square grid. So that's Bruce Cathie, and that's that connection between the grid and UFOs. And there are many, many other hypotheses about perhaps these ships use the Earth grid as a kind of an energy. Perhaps they use it as a kind of a navigational aid. But we could hypothesize that they are not electromagnetic blind as we are. I said earlier, we have this magnetite in our brain. It's a potential mechanism for us to have a magnetic sense, but we don't generally recognize, most of us don't recognize our magnetic sense. So we're electromagnetically blind. But it's possible or even likely that other species are able to have electromagnetic sight, in a sense, just like birds and bees and fish, more consciously or perhaps instinctively navigate by the magnetic field of the Earth. And perhaps, probably, possibly one of the biggest impacts of this collapse or chaotic flip of the magnetic field of the Earth would be an impact to the navigation of birds and fish, migrations and such.
That's interesting that you say that, because I think it was just yesterday I saw that a number of fish were seen just swimming in a circle, and they weren't quite sure why they were doing that, whether it was because of, environmental change, like the water is really warm or whatever, but it sounds more like you said, it would be a directional or navigational sort of thing.
Well, I'm a firm believer that this isn't good. I'm afraid this might be kind of a digression from your point there, but I'll say I'm a firm believer that fishermen are super highly tapped into vortex energy. They're standing in the river over the course of hours and days and weeks and months and seasons and years, and they're so knowledgeable about the environment and the fish and everything, and certainly you can see the spiraling electromagnetism when you look at a road map. When you look at and I'll come back to road map, but when you look at air photos, when you look at how species are moving and how plants are growing, we can see the spiraling electromagnetism. And On a plant level, you can see trees growing in unusual ways, spiraling in unusual ways. Trees, redwoods don't usually spiral, but you might see a spiraling redwood. You might see a tree growing in an unusual way. Many more branches branching out at a node than they ordinarily do. So you can see plants growing in unusual ways. And look at an air photo, you might find that there are circles and half circles, and that you can actually spot these, with effect, spherical vortexes from circles and half circles in the landscape, and the way the rivers are curving around, and the way the mountains are curving around, and so the way that the roads curve around, they all follow these patterns. And we have discovered that the vortexes tend to occur in diameters of 54 miles and multiples of 54 miles. And so I have written a book, and this is the free book I'll send you when you email me at energy@vortexmaps.com. I'll send you US vortexes 54 miles wide, and that will lay out the reason why I propose that vortexes tend to fall in these dimensions and multiples of this dimension. And just not to hold anything back, to jump right to the end, I propose that vortexes occur in multiples of 54-mile diameters because of the polar circumference of the Earth. That is, like the equator, but different. It's a great circle drawn through the poles of the Earth, and that is a near exact multiple of 27 miles, making these vortexes, these smaller vortexes, because the Earth itself is one grand vortex. These smaller vortexes are like harmonics or fractals of the whole Earth.
Well, I think on that note, we should go to our first music break.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Take 15?
Yep, we're going to take 15. So on this music break, we have Jeff Hilliard, who is actually from the Los Angeles area of California, with his 80s sort of ballad called Abandon. Then we have Gravity from Krakow, Poland, with My Last Goodbye, as well as Take a Walk in My Shoes. And then we also have Mr. Fred Johnson III from Canyon County, California, with Sugar. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this music break.
you said you need. Why don't you tell me, baby, how do you feel? As I walk down the street, thinking all the things you said you need. Why don't you tell me, baby, how do you feel? Why don't you take a walk? Why don't you take a walk? In my shoes, why don't you take a walk? Before you tell me what to do, why don't you take a walk? Why don't you take a walk? In my shoes, why don't you take a walk? Before you tell me what to do. No, it's easy, you tell me what to do. Have you ever stopped to think all the things that I've been through? No, it's easy, you tell me what to do. Have you ever stopped to think all the things that I've been through? Don't you take a walk? Don't you take a walk? In my shoes, or don't you, baby, take a walk? Before you tell me what to do, don't you take a walk? Don't you take a walk? In my shoes, or don't you, baby, take a walk? Before you tell me what to do. Waiting here on this cold, lonely night without you. The tension's overbearing. Wondering, are you coming back home again? To inspire fondness with love. Where did our love go wrong? Melts away. Please look into my eyes, my sugar. without you. Where did our love go wrong, my sugar?
Welcome back, and thanks so much for joining me tonight on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. That was our music break. We had Gravity from Krakow, Poland. Mr. Dan Medina, he's going to be on the next break. He was actually one of the peeps originally from the band Gravity. We also had Mr. Jeff Hilliard from Los Angeles, as well as Fred Johnson III, which is one of my favorites. All right, let me bring Mr. Dan Shaw back on here. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Can you hear me better? Can you better now, Dan? And you're muted, just so you know. Is it better?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I was hoping I didn't mess it up. Well, welcome back. Okay, Carol can hear me. Good.
Thank you.
Okay, we're good all around. All right. So we left off on a couple things. Vortexes, how they change locations. Is that connected to how the North and South Pole are drifting? Pretty interesting stuff. Missing people, UFOs, Bigfoot, people disappearing. Says missing people. I'm repeating myself. Yeah, pretty interesting stuff for sure.
Time slips. Yeah. Okay, so I think it's important to, if I may, take just a minute to kind of reset the frame, and then just to sum up that first hour, if I can, in just like 2 to 3 minutes. I'll try. And then I think what I'd like to do is actually take folks on a little bit of a Vortex tour, if I may, so to speak. So like 3 to 5 minutes of, probably 2 minutes of preparing to go on your Vortex journey, and then 3 minutes of going on your Vortex journey. So if I may, we'll just try to ground this information in for people who they want to get out on the land and actually connect to some energies. I love the information, and there's a lot of different elements. It's hard to kind of provide a linear narrative and also a holistic narrative around it, but let me see what I can do. So there are paranormal places. There are places that somehow contribute to or enhance paranormal abilities, paranormal phenomena, by whatever name. It seems that electromagnetism plays a profound, if not complete and total, role in this interplay, this unity between our human energy field and the planetary energy field. So that no matter where we are or where we go, we are swimming in this churning sea of electromagnetism that is affecting our physiology and our psyche. So I'd like to say there's an infinite amount of energy available everywhere, all the time, for our physical healing, our psychic opening, and for harmonizing the planet. So begin with electromagnetism, but there's this definite element of consciousness and intention and magic as well. I like to think I'm presenting the science behind Earth magic. So the electromagnetism, that's a very rich place to begin, let's say. And everybody comes to this study from a different angle. I came to it kind of sideways in a very miraculous way, but as a student of alchemy, I saw this, what I call earth magic, geomancy, as a subset of alchemy, and all the same rules apply in geomancy as in alchemy. And our purpose is the same, and that is the perfection of ourselves, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. So this energy, this whatever it is, electromagnetic plus earth energy, it's available just to us everywhere. And we needn't go to an exotic place, but it's wonderful to go to an exotic place and to put where the rubber meets the road is, let's go to a place, let's go on a pilgrimage. Yeah. So we'd like to prepare in the best way possible for this journey. So let's do this. Let's consider where we want to go. We're looking for a place that has these vortex markers that we talked about. We look at the map and we can see there's national parks, there's preserves, there's wildlife areas, there's peaks, there's historic places, there's mines, mineral deposits, all these things. So we consider where we want to go. Maybe we're going to a body of water, and we prepare, consider what to bring, what to leave behind, and treat it just as you would any other pilgrimage or vision quest. Make preparations. When you are traveling, be sensitive to how the energy changes as you're traveling, as you approach the place. You'll find that there are thresholds, and be mindful as you pass through these thresholds deeper and deeper into whatever temple or nature temple you're entering into. As you enter into this place, you want to take off your shoes out of reverence, if you possibly can, and to connect to the electromagnetic field of the earth. And in the same vein, you want to bathe in the waters, or wade, or touch the waters themselves, because that has a profound electromagnetic effect. Grounding, walking barefoot on the beach. Breathing the air, which is full of ions, hopefully negative ions, which are the ones that are actually good for you, that you find around waterfalls. Breathe the air. Take in all the colors. Maybe eat a little wild edibles, if those are available to you in abundance. Maybe drink some of the water if that's safe to do. So you're just allowing the energies of the place to infuse you. You're sensing the wind, the aromas on the wind, and you're surrendering to that experience of being in that place and what that brings. My favorite thing to do at a sacred place is to bring a trash bag and carry trash on the way out, and do my little energy work in that humble way. But there's, because of this unity between ourselves and the place, our very presence there changes the place. There's this reciprocity, this unity. Not only are we affected by the place, but we are affecting the place. So you want to go there in a mindful way, leave the outside world behind, pick up after yourself, take your energy with you so that the place remains pristine, and spend enough time there so that you can do that, absorb the energies. And so in a very, let's say, etheric way, but also in a very physical way, grounding yourself in the energy of the place. Breathing, perhaps eating, drinking, seeing, smelling, all your senses, touching, feeling, physically. And everybody senses vortex energy in different ways. Some people sense it as kind of an electrical tingling. Some people, I tend to feel a little tingling in my nose or my third eye, my face, my jaw. Sometimes the hair stands up on your arms or the back of your neck, whatever it might be. Some feel it as like a magnetic push or pull, which you can feel in this fashion with between the palms of your hands, or sometimes it's a heat and cool sensation, and you can do that around the trunk of a tree, and you can perceive subtle variations in the energy of the tree just by moving your hands up and down the trunk of the tree. In the energy field of the tree, an inch or two away from the trunk of the tree, you'll be able to sense the energies of the tree in that way, perhaps with a little practice and in the right time and place. So then the point, the purpose of your pilgrimage has been really to bring home the boon, so to speak. It's called Bring Home the Boon. And that is the gift that you bring home with you and that you hopefully will integrate into your everyday life, just as you would with some kind of vision, any other kind of vision quest. So thanks for coming along with me on this journey. Thanks for letting me do that.
Yeah, that was awesome. And I was going to ask about shoes. Like when you go to a place like this, I would think, taking off your shoes would be best because basically, like, I think a lot of things that we're going through as far as like physical or spiritual or whatever traumas and health issues and stuff like that, because the barrier between us and the earth is pretty constant during the day. If you're going to the store or you're going to work or driving your car or elsewhere, like we're wearing shoes. Like as a kid, you couldn't keep shoes or clothes on me. And I was out in the middle of the woods, so that was okay. But as you grow and become an adult, you have shoes, which creates that barrier. So I think I was on point with that. Like, take off your shoes when you're in a situation like this, and then you will connect with the earth better. Or what are some of the attributes that you get by doing that?
Well, some of your listeners will be familiar with the idea of earthing or grounding your electrical field. And it's quite true that there's a quite distinct increase, gradient in electrical potential as you move up from ground level, from the earth itself, up even a matter of 2 meters or about 6 feet. There's a tremendous gradient of electrical potential, which is why mountaintops tend to get struck by lightning, or golfers in an electrical storm, right? So when you're wearing insulative shoes, and there are a few shoes that are available that are conductive rather than insulative, such as natural leather soles, when you're wearing insulative shoes, it makes a difference to the way your cells work. All of our cells are profoundly electromagnetic, and they depend on these minute electromagnetic gradients in order for nutrients to pass through cell walls. So you can imagine that all the subtle workings of our neurology, of our nerves and brains, are profoundly affected by these divergent electromagnetic fields that are happening, let's say, as you drive over a mountain pass, or you maybe skirt the edge of a desert, and as you're driving for hours and hours, you've got mountains on this side and desert on that side. And then maybe a couple of weeks later, you come back from that trip, and now for hours and hours, you're driving in the deserts over on this side and the mountains over on this side. And now you've kind of balanced out that first part of your journey in some electromagnetic sense.
Yeah, that's why one of the reasons I love this area so much, because it's plains, mountains, and desert. Like, all you have to do is drive 30 minutes in any direction and you're in a different place. And it's just like the Four Corners area, to me, growing up, after moving from Arkansas and Washington State, I think I was in 4th or 5th grade or whatnot when I moved to Colorado, but to me it just seemed like such a magical, mystical place, and the energy was just very different than back east and out west. And I think that could be due to vortices, or like you said, there's gold lines, there's granite, there's different things that are conducive to these certain energies. Yeah, I do feel like this area is just a great big vortex. I don't know about you, but
Well, to my point, you're talking about a kind of a regional scale. And people often want to know, like, oh, is my property a vortex? And yet they're living on the flank of some volcano, right? And so that's pretty much how it is. If you're in the vicinity of Mount Shasta, I mean, you don't have to be on the pinpoint of the apex of the mountain. You're within the field of energy of, you're in the Shasta bioregion. Same for you. Only what we're talking about is what we call the continental divide, which in reality is the continental unite. And I'm using my hands to indicate these continental plates that are coming together and uplifting and forming that mountain range, which is the continental divide. Yeah. So what you've got is these massive continental plates that are colliding. And so there's a tremendous amount of pressure going on. And of course, there's electrical currents in the earth. And depending on how moist this soil is, what the composition of the soil is, what the minerals are in the soil, there are electrical currents in the earth, measurable, scientifically measurable, etc. So these electrical currents is the quartz crystals that are in the earth. Under pressure, quartz crystals are piezoelectric, and they are contributing, whether they are under whatever pressure they're under, either compression or tension, they're contributing to the complex electrical field that's going on in the soil under our feet. And so you've got these two continental plates together creating all this pressure, but there's also this daily cycle going on. Among all the other time cycles, we have the daily cycle going on, which is the continental tides, which are a byproduct of the oceanic tides. So as the Earth rotates and creates these tidal bulges, at the same time, the continental plates are getting crushed and you could say relaxed. Yeah, so there's this daily cycle, this wave cycle of electricity, just based on the fact that you're both at the Rocky Mountains or the Continental Divide, yeah, and also these daily time cycles. So that alone, leave aside the fact that you've built a pyramid at your place and whatever, medicine wheel down the road or whatever it is. There's these regional. So thanks for letting me monologue. Yeah.
Well, and it's funny, too, that you mentioned volcanoes, because growing up in Cortez, Colorado, and going to school there, I don't know if you know about Sleeping Ute Mountain or whatnot. It looks like a indigenous person with his arms across his chest, like he's sleeping. It's even got the toes at the very end. But according to my science teacher in junior high school, it's a dormant volcano, which to me was very interesting. And kind of scary too, but I think there's lots of that in this area. I think people just aren't aware of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, the two parts, actually, I should mention. First of all, there's a reason why Tesla built his Cliff Tower in Colorado. And I think it has to do with the potentials there for Earth energy, both at the high elevations and where there's this collision of the continental plates and this Earth electricity I was talking about. So the volcanoes, for me, the kind of the exciting part about volcanoes being vortexes, it has to do with the idea that the magma does not have a magnetic field to it until it cools to a certain point called the Curie point. When it cools to that point, then bam, the magnetic particles align, the iron aligns and gives it that magnetic field that matches the surrounding magnetic field at the time. So as we mentioned, the magnetic field of the Earth is slowly changing over time. Meanwhile, you've got these lava flows that have hardened at different periods of time with different magnetic orientation. So they hold a paleomagnetic fingerprint of the time that they cooled to that point, so that you can date lava flows according to their magnetic fields that way. So Now, as we move through or around these magnetic fields, whether from a volcano or anything else, or if we change our orientation to these fields, as I mentioned a moment ago, then that has, I think, a subtle and profound impact both on our experience. And there's every reason to believe that every type of paranormal phenomena is tied into these energetic points. But then again, not every paranormal experience is necessarily tied into these places. Now, I recently had a series of paranormal experiences that happened around my visit to New Mexico.
Oh, wow.
To New Mexico a couple of months ago. And I got a series of 2 photos, which I'm wishing I could bring up on screen at the moment, but don't quite have the. I looked at the sharing screen situation there, and that might have to wait. But I took 2 photos in New Mexico at a location which is seemingly pretty kind of mundane. And that is this manufactured home, inside of a manufactured home on a lot about 30 miles south of Albuquerque. Mm-hmm. So I was clearing out this house, and I took before and after pictures of the house. So it's a series. I have 3 in the series, because I have a before photo when I took a picture of every room of the house from many different angles before it was cleared out, because this was clearing out an estate of my late father-in-law, and he lived a very paranormal life. He was definitely spending a lot of time in other dimensions and having things come through into this dimension. He had many various stories, which I have every reason to believe, for reasons I can't fully go into. But I took a picture of his bathroom, one of the bathrooms, picture from the doorway, picture from the other side, back at the doorway. Well, after I cleaned out the room, each room of the house, I would go back and I'd take another set of pictures, the after pictures. And I could mention that he had built a pyramid in his backyard. There were other vortex markers around other than my father-in-law, and reasons that he picked this property because he was tapped into other dimensions there. So there we are. So I'm taking the after picture of the bathroom back towards the doorway, shower on the left, sink on the right, door in the middle, and took the picture, phone, look down at the phone, and there's this black figure in the left of the frame that, I don't think it's there. So I look back up at the shower, door, sink, and sure enough, I can't see a thing there that looks like a black form or figure on the left. Mm-hmm. And so I go ahead and I take another photo, and that one came out as expected, as you would expect. So
were these the before pictures?
Examination, once I get after I'd cleaned out the place, the room was completely empty, just bare to the floor. Pulled up the carpets and everything. So I have this pair of pictures, 3 really. Place full of his stuff, then totally cleared out, but this black pillar on the left, which a couple of folks who've seen the photos have told me not a good thing, and kind of a vampiric energy sucking entity. Folks who have seen these things before, they actually have the ability to see them.
Yeah.
One of them. So,
there's a couple theories, but I want you to finish your story first.
Oh, just that I was very much there doing my feng shui with a dust rag and garbage can, clearing out the energy. And I mean, you could say, I don't want to exaggerate, because I was exercising, performing a kind of exorcism, because I was clearing out the energy of the last person who was there. Not that it was necessarily evil or demonic or anything, but I was doing an energy clearing of the energy of my late father-in-law. And so, I wasn't totally surprised to see this glitch in the camera, and I'm not necessarily saying that it is some kind of entity, because it could potentially be a glitch in the camera electronics, and we see that all the time with energy, electromagnetic energy. So it could be either of those things. If folks go to my website, vortexmaps.com, and they click on the blog icon, the blogger icon, that'll take them to, it'll be one of the first articles in my blog. So that was part of my, part of my experience around this place 30 miles south of Albuquerque in the last couple months in the desert.
Yeah, as far as dark entities showing up on camera go, I'm not convinced after 40-something years of dealing with this stuff that is a dark energy. I think energy is always there. Energy cannot end, once it's begun or whatnot. And I think sometimes an individual in the spirit realm will take whatever energy it can grab onto to manifest itself. And like you said, like the spectrum of our eyes, we can't see every color of the spectrum. We can't see everything in the spectrum. Like dogs can see more than we can. Cats can see more than we can. And it's pretty interesting. Some of us can see more than other people can, but my twinnie Carol was saying in the chat room, he was upset because you moved his stuff. Could be, or maybe he was showing up to say thank you, for helping his daughter, helping to take care of all this stuff. You never know, but I don't know, when you were talking about it and the feeling that I was getting, like, intuitively and such, like, I don't feel like it was a bad energy. I feel like that was him trying to say thank you. I'm getting all emotional, but I think he was just trying to say thank you for helping. And it's pretty interesting that he built a pyramid. So was this, like, in his garden? Or what exactly did he do with this pyramid?
He was an eccentric character in many ways, and he didn't have good psychic self-defense, and he was being pestered from other dimensions, and he had a story of a black cat kind of whumping in an unusual way at his back door, walking through his house, knocking stuff over, going into a back bedroom from which there was no exit. End of story. Last he saw of this black cat. So, and I'll just back that up just a little bit. Under ordinary circumstances, a reasonable person would have every reason to doubt this story from this man who felt like he had some kind of persecution complex. So very often when I hear from people all the time. I have had enough miraculous experiences that I take them at their word. But on the other hand, from a rational, logical, scientific standpoint, it's people are sometimes very hard to tell if they have all their mental facilities or not, or if they're living some kind of shamanic interdimensional experience in reality or in some kind of fantasy. Like, who am I to say? But when I had heard this story from my father-in-law, I had just come off of a series of events of my own, which were what I call a glitch in the matrix. And it could not, he called glitch in the matrix actually, but because I just had my own glitch in the matrix, I had to believe, first of all, in the credibility of his story, and secondly, that my glitch in the matrix, part of its purpose was to help me to listen to my father-in-law's
Mm-hmm.
experiences. So there I was in New Mexico, South Albuquerque, very much the edge of civilization there, still a little civilization. And I had definitely had the interdimensional connection to my late father-in-law, his energy profoundly there, me not only retracing his steps in a certain way, eating the Thanksgiving dinner that the neighbors brought over in the same way he had, but I was also doing very much an undoing of all the screws that he had put in and all the things he had built. So it was over the course of about 3 months, it was very much a spiritual exercise for me in as much as any other Vortex experience. And then there were other things in and around it, living in the desert for the first time, getting to experience what I think of as desert energy and how that feels, all the positive ions in the air until it rains, and then you get that.
Yeah, it's pretty different in the desert. Like you were saying, and outside of Albuquerque, that's in between Albuquerque and Las Cruces. I call Lost Causes for personal reasons, but yeah, it's pretty interesting. And I don't know if you agree or have witnessed this or not, but I believe for a matter of different reasons, it could be CERN and doing the particle collisions. It could be number of different things that are happening in our world. I feel like the different layers of trying to think of the word right now, different dimensions. It feels like they're getting closer together, and the veil between places is thinning, so we're able to witness things and take part of things that we haven't before. And it kind of feels like, and like I said, I don't know if you feel this way too, but like we're getting closer to something, like different things are opening up, energies are amping up. Seriously, like the last 5 years, I've always believed that plants and animals had their own like spiritual thing going on, but then within the last 5 years, I've seen auras around trees and plants and rocks and different things that people would think aren't living as far as spiritually, but I do believe they are. Like, so many of these things are kind of happening all at the same time, and it's a very interesting and intriguing time in our lives. And I don't know. To me, it's pretty amazing.
Well, that brings me back really to that earlier question about, is the grid getting stronger and weaker? I really wanted to kind of close that with this idea that the grid itself is a divine being, not separate from us. And the grid itself, the earth itself, and the grid are going through their own evolutionary ascension process. Some researchers seem to think that the grid is becoming more and more complex. It's going from simpler geometries, let's say the cube, to more complex geometries, for example, the dodecahedron, and then on beyond into more complex geometries beyond those Platonic geometries. I have kind of a favorite hypothesis in response to what you said just now, that about the veil between dimensions seemingly thinning. I'll start by saying that in terms of deadly ley lines, there does seem to be a high correspondence between military bases, military involvement, grid points, radioactive materials, radioactive processing, radioactive storage, nuclear facilities, grid points, and atomic particle accelerators and grid points. And I document a lot of that at vortexmaps.com, and I'm going to bring that all together in one of my next titles, which is Deadly Ley Lines. So there's that element about CERN, and CERN have something to do with it. I would say, from my standpoint, I have to say, plausible that the particle accelerators on the grid points have something to do with grid engineering. I mean, why not? We're talking about how it's possible to use energetic materials. In fact, energetic materials such as were used in the ancient monuments like Stonehenge and the pyramids of Egypt and Americas and all over the world. Monuments of all kinds were built with energetic materials and with an awareness of the energy of the materials in a way to enhance, in my opinion, enhance all living beings, all living cells, and with an awareness of the grid. And because we find so many ancient monuments built on the geometric points you see on this geometric globe, it's convincing that on some level, conscious or subconscious, these ancient civilizations were aware of the grid. They were aware of the magnetic properties of the materials they were using. They were using the monuments to geoengineer.
Well, they can even see stars that you can't even see without a telescope. Like, how did they know that Sirius B was even there? They did. Could it be because, information was passed to them from a hierarchy, somebody from space? Perhaps, I don't know. Like, these things blow my mind and keep me up every night.
Well, let me say that Sirius B thing. Now that you mention it in this context, like, it seems like a little bit of a glancing blow, but in this context, it occurs to me that we think, and the Dogon tell us that they were visited by beings from these planetary systems, these solar systems, and that's how they know, right? That's the legend, and they apparently, I mean, it seems clear the Dogon knew about Sirius B. This is not like internet hyperbole or anything. So how did they know? They say they knew because they were, they had contact, right? That's where we are. On the other hand, it's, to my mind, there's other possibilities. I mean, let's believe the Dogon, but they could have just as easily, from my worldview, have done, known that by remote viewing. Like there were other plausible, like psychic mechanisms for knowing that in my worldview. Since you mentioned it at this moment, but what I was driving towards, though, if I may just blue sky for a minute, as what you were saying about the veils thinning, seeming to be thinning, it's possible. Let's just say it's possible that this kind of controlled disclosure that we're seeing around UFOs is part of preparing us for a kind of greater ontological shock. That is, a shock to our worldview that can result in kind of a spiritual emergency. And I'm referring in part to a book by Stanislav Grof called Spiritual Emergence. But when we have this experience of seeing a UFO for the first time, or seeing a crop circle, or whatever that paranormal experience, Bigfoot, or whatever it is, that can obviously it can create an ontological shock if our worldview, our belief system isn't ready for that. How do we have a psychotic break, or do we somehow integrate that into our daily life in a positive way? So it's possible that the veils are thinning, and these things that are happening around UFO disclosure, for example, are part of preparing us for a greater ontological shock.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. Like, I feel like the History Channel and other people were in on, let's start by putting these theories out here. These scientific people suggest, or these space people suggest, or whatever. Like, all these different theories. And then years later, they're like showing videos. Disclosure is what it's called. We're going to disclose to you, but I think it has to be slow and progressive because, like, a lot of us have experienced it, but there's people out there that are like, no one knows this stuff happening. Like, they don't believe it. And if they were just to come out one day and say, hey, guess what? It's real. a lot of people would lose their mental stasis or whatever is going on with them. Like, I think that could be very, very detrimental. So I think in small little portions, they're trying to feed it to us, and then I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen, but I think something's going to happen here pretty soon. Could be the next 5 years, could be less. I don't know. Could be more.
Well, it's happening now. We're on part of this wave. We're on some part of the wave right now, I feel. Yeah.
I'm trying to sound sane when I say these things, because when I say these things to people, like, my husband or my daughters or whatever, like, and I listen to myself, I sound crazy. But I know I'm not. Like, I know I've seen these things, but wouldn't a crazy person say that too? But yeah, Carol is down. Oh, go ahead.
I'm imagining that, one day I'll write a book and it'll be called nearly exactly what you just said. It's like, I'm not crazy. I know what I saw. And because I can't tell you, how many times I've heard that so many times, and I feel the same way. And you'll notice that, I'm doing my best to present a logical part, that left, both hemispheres of the brain, let me say, and present the science behind Earth magic. I've had the magic and miraculous happen, and I think it's normal and natural just to look first for, what's the logical, rational explanation of that. But that is, satisfaction is not fully to be found in any kind of logical, rational worldview. And I think in the end, we just need to surrender to the reality that we are living in some kind of shamanic, multi-dimensional reality beyond what our limited senses can perceive. And I think, unfortunately, that puts us in we're not in a strategic position compared to any kind of species that has these abilities of moving in between dimensions. Any kind of, let's say, spiritually advanced, technologically advanced, perhaps, or just different species that has the ability to operate in these dimensions which we cannot perceive. And I'm put in mind of this original Star Trek episode where there were these beings that were simply moving too fast for us to perceive them. If there are these, that's the word I want, is disadvantaged. We're in a disadvantaged position relative to these other beings, or you could perhaps invert that, and it's in a positive sense. They're to every appearance, there are these other beings that have greater abilities than we generally manifest. But I think we have, I know that we have many, many examples of what we might think of as superhuman or paranormal beings or avatars or Christs or Krishnas. We have many examples of these beings who've gone before us and attained the ascension. What was that last one?
Mutants. Like, I'll always refer to myself as a mutant because I've never fit in. I'm not normal. I'm really weird. So what's the best way to say that? I'm a mutant. I'm not the same as everybody else.
No doubt. I'm pretty sure there's one of these sci-fi movies where the ones with paranormal abilities are actually called the mutants, but I think it's the other way around, in that we're not the most evolved beings we've ever been on the planet. We're perhaps, a part of the fallen age and fallen race on this planet, in terms of, this planet once being inhabited by creatures who were godlike compared to us.
Yeah, it's funny because my
exciting
sister...
stuff, but the problem is...
What? Well, I was just going to say my sister's...
just saying, the problem is...
Yeah, you go first.
The delay in the podcast is killer. The problem is that when one does have, let's say, contact with a UFO in whatever way, shape, or form, for me, it was night. I turned off all the lights in the house. I was a child. I was living at home in my parents' home, and I'll say it was in Marin County. In other words, just north of San Francisco. So the home was situated at the end of a street, and there were essentially no other houses at this dead end. One across the street, one other house there across the street. But I had a habit of turning out all the lights in the house and going out and sitting in the hot tub and looking up at the stars. And in the day, which would have been 1978, not a lot of satellites going across the sky. But pardon me? Oh, dated myself. Did the math.
Me too. That's the year I was born. I'm like, that's a good year.
Back in the prehistoric days, before SpaceX and the Starlink satellites, there wasn't a lot of satellites in the sky, and so I was in a valley, so if I watched the sky, I could sometimes see a satellite crossing, and if I was observant, I would catch it, do the full arc of visible sky, and kind of catch it the longest path, not just as it's going out of sight. So that's kind of the setup. And I'm out there at night in the dark, pretty dark out there. This hillside was one I was intimately familiar with because as a kid, there was nowhere to go if I wanted to get out of the house. That's where I went, was up this hill. And so there's nothing up there, completely open space. And then I'm sitting there in this hot tub, and there's my hillside. For a moment, there was a bank of lights came on this hillside, or between me and the hillside, I should say, so very close, below the horizon, and bank of lights flashing on and off in a few colors, white, yellow, orange, boom, on and off for just a second or two. A very complex pattern that it was complex enough, I will say in hindsight, it could have been a language, really. It was, had a degree of complexity. And years later, too, I realized that it was remarkably similar to that bank of lights that you do see in Close Encounters. At the climactic moment in Close Encounters at Devil's Tower, there's a bank of colored lights that goes on and off that's similar to what I actually saw. And my point being that at that point, age 14, there's this kind of ontological shock that you maybe have in your own life. And maybe you're listening. I'm sure you do. I would think. I don't want to presume. Some of your listeners will have had this and some won't. Some will be like paranormal chasers who have not had their paranormal experience. I'm probably not saying that right. I don't mean it in any derogatory way. But
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Thanks for saying so. So at that point, if you can sympathize or empathize with me as a young kid, or any young child or adult, now I've had this ontological shock. I've seen that there's something. Apparently, it's a UFO. It's just there and gone in an instant, and I cannot say that it was Vortex related. That's not why I'm telling this story. I can't say that it wasn't, of course, but let me tell you, the way that apparent craft of that apparent size was there and then gone without any before or after trail noise, nothing. I didn't see saucer, just bank of lights. They're gone. Could have been a vortex, right? Just in and out of this dimensional portal. But again, not the point of my story. The point is really there's this moment for some of us where there's this ontological shock, or this shock to everything we've always believed. And then everything we've thought was true, that all has to be questioned. And that can take that integrating that into our lives then can sometimes never happen for people. They can go into denial, forget it, claim, just rationalize it away or whatever. Some people will have a psychotic break and just can't integrate it with their everyday life then, in extreme cases, I would think. And then some of us will be able to take these experiences and somehow shape them into informing, this everyday life that we lead with doing the dishes and laundry and whatever we're doing, walking the dog.
It's true. We kind of integrate it into our lives, or we have a total meltdown, depending on where we are on the scale of paranormal and supernatural. It's pretty interesting.
Not to laugh.
No.
What brought us to this point was you were saying, I know what I saw. I know I'm not crazy. And I hear from people all the time who are saying the same thing. They've had some kind of paranormal experience. I mean, so much so that I thought I could put together a book of letters from people called Letters to the Vortex. But I continuously get letters from
that would be
people
awesome.
They know they're not crazy. They know they're not crazy. They've had some paranormal experience. Unfortunately, I have to sift through to focus on which ones seem to be place related. Now, I'll respond to every email. There's no question, but I'm not interested in every paranormal phenomenon. I just can't be. I'm interested in this sense of place and seeing people's places, maybe helping them map their place, what the energies are there, maybe making some adjustment to the energies of their place in some way, shape, or form. Putting together like a 30-part series, some kind of course on energetic places and all the different pieces that make that up, the biophysics, the geophysics.
But like you're saying, you're consistently getting new letters from different people. So I would say go ahead and put out your first one. And who's to say you could have 5 in this series of books, depending on how many people contact you and write you and stuff. I was just thinking, I want to send you my UFO pictures and videos that I have on file. I've downloaded and re-downloaded things because downloading from my phone to my computer, you can't see it. And so I had to do it a certain way where you could, because I don't want to send something and be like, look, there it is. And they're like, we don't see anything. But on my cell phone, it's perfectly clear. You could see this thing flying, and then there's 2 things flying. Then there's a military jet following it.
Yep.
And then when you look at it on the email that I was going to send, you can't see it. So yeah, I had to redo it. But yeah, I would definitely do that if I were you. And I hate to interrupt, but we do have to go to our second music break.
Whoa!
Oh.
Great. We'll see you in 15.
All right. See you soon. I was about to say, you okay with that? But I know you are. Anyways. Sorry, guys. It's so crazy. My whole system is glitching. Before I even got on there, with our friend Dan Shaw, still right now, everything is flickering. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Gotta tell you what. But yeah, so we're gonna go on with our second music break. We have Shep Hilliard from Los Angeles, California with Good Life, Gravity from Krakow, Poland with Throw You Away, Dan Medina, who was a member of Gravity, who, Justin Timberlake decided, I'm not gonna be a part of Gravity anymore. I'm gonna go out on my own. And he's singing I Won't Let You Go, which is a really good one. Then we have Mr. Fred Johnson III from Canyon County, California with After Dark. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this music break.
Excuse me! Excuse me! You got a cigarette? Hey, you help a guy out with some spare change. Anything will do, man. God bless you. Can I just get your change? I missed the bus. I got to get
Things can't be unsaid. Streets of these are going to dead end. Listening to waves on windy days, standing by the wall, making sense of it all. the dark, so alone in the dark. 'Cause I won't let you go. I won't let you go. You're so far away, always with me in my soul. Yeah, yeah, and I won't let you go. And I won't let you go. My driver pulls up in my limousine, ready to take me anywhere I want to be. I say, I want to go. Take me to a college scene. I'd like to go and dance, have drinks, and hunt the perfect date. Yeah. Living at the dark, I search lonely streets to find hidden shadows in the dark. It doesn't matter what I say. Secret homicides arranged in a series of pursuits. No matter what I say, after dark, I give her base because she had the range. I knew she was the one that never could go home again. Plastic lifeline limo seats. I don't know why I can't control this urge to hurt again. Yeah. Living at the dark, I search lonely streets to find hidden shadows in the dark. It doesn't matter what I say. Jesus in the sky, murder forever after. No matter what I say, after dark. Feeling ran to arguments and fear. In hiding place with days of December. Concerning words were meshed in romantic. It doesn't matter what I say. It really doesn't. No matter what I say, after dark. It doesn't matter what I say. Secret homicides arranged in a series of pursuits. No matter what I say, shades in the sky, murder forever after. It doesn't matter what I say. Rude and fatal, lacking the hint of conscience. No matter what I say, after dark.
Welcome back, my paranormal supernatural peeps. Thank you so much for joining us. on all the places that we are these days. I'm sorry about the glitch. It's so crazy. Like, I feel like I have some sort of disease where everything is flickering. This is the very first time I dealt with this on StreamYard, so it's really tripping me out. But if you're joining us on Facebook, YouTube, as well as Twitch, thank you so much for joining us. And I also have to thank Dan Shaw for being here. Thanks for being here, Dan Shaw, and thanks for putting up with this paratechnical shenanigans. Wouldn't be St. Patty's Day without it.
You know, it happens all the time with, as I was saying, this is one of the phenomena that we find at Vortexes is that the electronics glitch and that people, we're electromagnetic and we can interfere with our devices, and our devices are electromagnetic. So we do see it happening all the time. We see, batteries that are fully charged draining, drained batteries charging. I've seen. I've kind of seen it all in some sense. So, yeah, for sure, you can expect your technology to have its glitches, as it interacts with our energy field. Of course, that's going to happen.
Definitely. So I don't know if you saw or not, but some FBI guy came out and he's like, everybody, you got to be aware, like, China is going to come out and we're going to have issues with our cell phones. And everybody's like, okay, dude, like, you're drinking the tea or whatever. And then the very next Monday, Verizon, Apple, the Cricket, all these different places are having cell phone issues. And it wasn't for days, but it was for a majority of a day. And everybody freaked out. Did you have to deal with that too?
Did I didn't hear who it was who was saying that it was going to happen. I have a friend who said, like, hey, heads up, there could be this outage. So I don't know where she got that information, but then there was that outage. So who said that first? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was that guy. You know how they'll go to the pulpit. Usually it's the lady. These days it's an African American lady, and she's really pretty and stuff, and she don't take no BS. But yeah, this FBI got up on the pulpit and he said, China is gonna hack us. Like, they've been trying to hack us, and there's gonna be issues. And everybody's like, okay, whatever. Like, we've heard this before. And then that very Monday, everybody had cell phone issues. So,
well, two parts for sure. I mean, I'm not sure where the Vortex part is, except that we are not totally ignorant of the cycles of the sun. We have some idea that at some point the sun's going to hit kind of a peak level of activity in its cycle and cycles. The 11-year, the 22-year. We're going to have solar maxima, solar minima. We're going to have solar flares, some of which are going to eject in the direction of Earth. Excuse me. It's a beautiful thing to see pictures of the Earth's magnetic field deflecting the solar wind or the charged particles from the sun. It does look something like a match being blown out, or very much like a comet with compressed on one side and an elongated tail on the other. And of course, the compressed part of the Earth's magnetic field is on the sunward daylight side, and the expanded part of the Earth's magnetic field is on the night dark side of the Earth. So as we rotate through sunrise and sunset as individuals on the planet, we're moving through that expansion and compression of the Earth's magnetic field. And I'm off on some great tangent. But
I do that all the time, so thanks for joining me.
We're being deeply, deeply impacted in so many varying ways by the cycles of the sun and its impacts on the Earth. Just to name one of the components, the contributors to the electromagnetic field that we experience. So it's, I mean, it's such a rich area of study, and to my mind, a plausible, at least partial explanation for why we could be having these paranormal experiences at particular places. And not that all paranormal experiences have to happen in the vortexes, not at all. But I'm led to believe, I have every reason to believe that there are places on the planet where, because of the earth energies, we are going to have more successful meditations and ceremonies and more success practicing our psychic abilities. So
yeah, and we
so that's
talked
what
about
I'm
this
about.
before. As far as Sedona, Arizona, everybody's like, you gotta go to Sedona, Arizona. Like, this is the most spiritual place I've ever been. So you gotta go there, and you get the spiritual cleansing and the spiritual guests, and oh my god, it's so amazing. But so many people have gone, it's like when people go to the ocean and they leave their trash behind and stuff like that, it gets polluted. So I'm kind of grateful that things move as they do. I don't know. What do you feel about the Sedona port? Because I used to want to go there. Now I'm just like, I'm good. I think I'll go somewhere else.
Well, there's definitely a lot that can be gained by going to Sedona. There is no question about that. And there's just an exquisite energy in all those red rocks. They're full of iron. You know, you're being exposed to that landscape. There's millions of years in that landscape that you're being exposed to. And, you know, you're moving, as you go through, you're moving in and out of the valley. You're experiencing all these elevational changes, you know, full of fantastic people there. And every vortex will have its own gifts. And Sedona in particular, it's on this wheel. It's totally connected to Shasta and Lake Louise, Tahoe, Grand Tetons. It's part of this unity of vortex here in North America, and there's so much to be gained by a pilgrimage, whether it's to Sedona or someplace else. In Sedona in particular, it's got its own exquisite pattern of a 5-pointed star and a 6-pointed star that share a point and form an alignment, which equates to your chakras. And here's the so what, to answer the so what question. My intention and hope and desire is to move through the landscape in such a way that it acts as a kind of trigger or chakra activation or sacred path. And you could, people have certainly equated points and lines on the landscape to the points and paths of the tree of life, the Kabbalistic tree of life. So and you could certainly build a garden in the shape of a tree of life. In fact, there's one here in Southern Oregon, a garden in the shape and pattern.
And I'm trying to remember back. You said it was 2018 when we last talked, and I think it was either in Sedona or the Joshua Tree Forest. I think it was Sedona, though, where there's a certain tree that was twisted because of a vortex. I think that was Sedona, but it could have been the Joshua Tree. I thought it was you, but it could have been somebody else I was talking to. But that was pretty intriguing.
You're right, and it could be anywhere. I've got beautiful. There's a beautiful twisted redwood right out front of the Confusion Hill tourist attraction in the California redwoods. Redwoods, if you're familiar, they don't ordinarily grow with a spiral, as I mentioned earlier. But outside the Confusion Hill vortex, there's this exquisite, massive, old redwood, and incredibly spiraled. And to your point earlier, the because of the title, I suspect the letters from the Vortex book does not sell well. Or maybe there's not really a crossover for some reason. People aren't really interested in reading the letters from the Vortex, but there's two parts. One is the letters, the words, and the other is the Vortex photos. And I do have a collection of Vortex photos you can see at my Flickr, and people do send me their Vortex photos. And
but when you said that title, like, if I saw that book on the shelf, I'd definitely be interested. So I don't know why people would be like pushed away from that. Like, that is so weird.
Maybe that's the one that should be called I'm not crazy, I know what I saw.
That's
Maybe
right.
that would sell.
Copyright me.
Okay.
I'm just teasing.
So much fun. So what I'd love to hear is people's local sacred place. If people on the chat want to chime in, where do they go to charge in their area? What's their, what's the place that they feel deeply connected to, or just some energetic spot? What I anticipate is that.
Can you go first, and I'll go, and then we'll all go?
Oh, yeah. Let's do that. So for me, it's Lake Tahoe. I grew up in the San Francisco area. I spent a lot of summers at Lake Tahoe. So consequently, going back and forth from San Francisco to Lake Tahoe, I was actually going along what would be a line from the Grand Tetons through Tahoe, Tahoe, out through San Francisco Bay, Farallon Islands. You could think of a line of energy coming out of this hub, which is the Grand Tetons. And I spent my childhood kind of going back and forth. And nice. Tahoe is home for me. It's one of the deepest, bluest lakes in the world, next to Lake Baikal. It's got its own cryptic creature, Tahoe Tessie, allegedly. And it's, snow-fed. It is controlled by a dam, but it's surrounded by groundnut, Mount Rose there next to Reno. And I used to lay out on a raft and in the sun and be rocked by a little bit of waves and smell all the pine pollen around. And that's a spot that I'm deeply connected to. And of course, you have the high mountain lake and everything going on energetically there. Your turn.
Okay, so for me, it's not too far away. All I have to do is go out my front door, go to the right. There's these really, really old blue spruce trees. I'm pretty sure they're like 250 years old. And during the summer, it's the coolest place in the world. But it's the most peaceful place to me in the world. And I've had so many spiritual awakenings out there. It's very, very amazing and personal to me. And people might poo-poo it because, like I said, it's right out there. But at the same time, I'm grateful because I could just walk out my door and go out there and disappear for a little bit. Nicole in the chat room was saying there's so many places to charge. It just depends on what you need. Forest, mountains, water, fields, just nature alone. You will always find beauty if you are truly seeking. And I agree. And then Sovereign Cosmic Wildman said, an area close to me is what the Chumash tribe call the Western Gate. I haven't been there yet. It's close to the lighthouse at Point Conception. There's a megalithic carving there somewhere. And there's so many amazing places that people have noticed recently, whether it be megalithic carvings or different carvings, or even mudslides that happen that cause mud fossils or mud sculptures. It's pretty intriguing. Carol said, "Achoo!" Bless you, Carol.
If I could respond to Sovereign Cosmic Wildman there and Nicole. Brilliant, actually. What I usually hear when people share their favorite place is exactly exactly what Nicole says, and that is it's usually mountains and water. Those are the two big categories.
And pine trees.
And then often forest. And if and when you become sensitive to subtle energies, you will certainly find that every tree has a different energy, and every part of every tree has a different energy, and every type of tree has a different energy, and every grove of trees has a different type of energy. And so blue spruce, 100%.
Yes.
Any kind of,
those are the ones I have in my
trees,
backyard are blue spruces, and they form this fort. It's amazing. It's just like my hideaway, and it's like this blue spruce is so old and so majestic, like it blocks the negative energies from getting in, and you can just radiate your energy and cleanse in there, and it's pretty awesome. And then Nicole was saying, like, you both are speaking about pine trees in a way. When I think of them, they serve many purposes, and that's true. And then she was talking about the Luna moth. Carol, like when you said that about Mount Evans, she said, I love to go up. Sorry, I'm kind of talking loud, like I just got over this sickness, like it's been taking forever, but I feel like I have to push my voice. But she said, I love to go up Mount Blue Sky, which is Mount Evans, to the wildflower fields. That's where I spread my husband's ashes. And it's funny, like that's one of the last places my mom went before she knew she was going to die and planned her own funeral. So that was pretty amazing. I wanted to go there, but my husband was afraid because it was really hot there. So we never got to go. But I'm going to go someday. I really want to go there.
And where is Mount Blue Sky? Where is that?
Right outside of Denver, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they renamed it. It used to be Mount Evans. Now it's Mount Blue Sky.
I see. So just to back up now to Sovereign Cosmic Wildman, before he goes up off the screen there, scrolls off the screen. The Chumash tribe totally dialed in. Let me tell you, I have numerous examples of petroglyphs, which are carved stones, and also pictographs, which are painted stones, which are the 19-pointed star that, for all appearances, seem to be actually maps of this landscape pattern coming out of the Chumash territory and elsewhere. So I have examples of native art, pictographs and petroglyphs depicting this geometry here. So I want to mention that. As far as point conception, definitely that point energy, very powerful. Point conception, point arena in particular. At that coast, you have all kinds of vortex influences going on. You've got all the electricity in the air because there's a lot of salt in the air, and that salt in that area just above the breaking waves. The air has different electrical properties, and you can expose yourself to many different kinds of energies in and around the coast, and especially at the Cape. So all very
and you were talking about like salt water and stuff.
Missionary.
Doesn't salt like magnify the energy? Like water does anyways, but doesn't salt magnify extra? Or no?
I'm not quite
Am I wrong?
sure where to begin. Not even where to begin with that question, because of course, there's all kinds of the alchemical properties of the salt. But there's where I go with that is there's no such thing as pure water. All water has salt in it, so it's going to have
impurities
and electrical properties. You could say impurities. It's going to have dissolved minerals and salts in it, so it's going to have electrical properties. So, of course, you have one energy coming from a lake. Let's say you have a kind of energy that comes from lakes. We'll call that lake energy, even though all lakes are different. Then you have a waterfall energy, the kind of energy that you kind of get at all waterfalls, let's say, but then each waterfall has its own very particular energy, right? And then rivers,
Well, yeah.
Depending on how you're oriented, where you are relative to that river, those rivers, each one and two coming together, those all, to 1 + 1 = 3. You've got all kinds of
Yeah, and like you're
energies at
saying,
the
like
rivers,
these
and then
different energies coming together cause different energies, but also the different stones and rocks and stuff in there, and so many different things.
So you've got the river energies there, then they go out, drain out to the ocean, and then they're carrying all kinds of minerals, right? They're probably carrying some placer gold, I expect, and that's all getting dumped out there in what's called the alluvial. I think it's the shape of a fan out there in the ocean. That delta of sediment is, that's probably carrying some gold where the water slows down. Some gold, placer gold settles out, so that's got its energy. And then out in the ocean, if you were to take a column of ocean, you would find that at different depths, it has different temperatures and salinities in that column, right? But what you'd find is, what you're seeing is actually different currents moving at different directions and in different ways from different places. And those all have different electromagnetic currents running through them. So super highly complex electromagnetic field out in the ocean. And so when you start thinking about, well, the Bermuda Triangle, what's going on there? You got that going on. You got that going on. In terms of this electromagnetism of all that different levels of layers of seawater. And then there's about 24 or more different factors I've identified at the Bermuda Triangle there that would confirm, including the geometric pattern, the global geometric pattern, but just geophysically, a couple of dozen different factors contributing to what I would call the vortex effect at the Bermuda Triangle. And I describe all those and more in a book I call How Vortexes Affect Us.
Well, when you said that, I was like, can you share with us? But I know a lot of that's in your book. So, could you share a small percentage just to get people intrigued? And then
that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here. So the Bermuda Triangle, I mean, it's good to, zoom in, zoom out. So when we're looking at a single point, what we're looking at the Bermuda Triangle is, specifically now, Nick Nelson, my co-author, he takes credit and deserves credit for the depiction of this area as a triangle which is canted or tipped at an angle. When you see the Bermuda Triangle depicted in this way as a triangle tipped at an angle, that's due to my co-author, Nick Nelson. Goes back to him, and he has a profound understanding of what's going on there. It's essentially a series of concentric circles radiating out from a point. You can draw that triangle in one of these circles, and those circles are, as we talked about earlier, multiples of 54 miles in diameter. The Bermuda Triangle vortex is 216 miles in diameter. In other words, 54 times 4. And then it has a corona, or another ring around it, which is 1/6 of that. And as many vortexes seem to, it has these various parts. It has its main part and then this additional corona around it. So it's got a geometric relationship to other vortexes around the world, these 12 in a geometric pattern. That you can see at vortexmaps.com. And there is a fellow who flew an airplane into a vortex and lived to tell about it. Highly credible pilot named Bruce Guernon, Guernon. And I forget the exact name of his book, but Bruce had a classic vortex experience with the spiraling cloud and the lost time. Actually, game time. Bruce had. So the Bermuda Triangle there.
Before you go into the Bermuda Triangle, Carol in the chat room was wondering, Dan, would you mind explaining the 5th and 4 again?
Sure have.
Sorry.
So,
But yeah, let's go back into the triangle and that stuff.
sure, and this stuff is highly visual, and I apologize, I'm not more facile with bringing up our
No,
images,
it's okay.
but if you'll go to vortexmaps.com, you'll readily see the book, click through, you'll see some images of examples of vortexes around the world, which we find, if you can picture a vortex, you can picture it as a sphere, and it's partially submerged underground, so it's partially above ground. This is like a hemispherical dome above ground. So it appears on a map, let's say, as a circle if you drew it on the ground. And what we find is that these vortexes are very often, very, very often, sometimes 54 feet in diameter, but more often very often 54 miles in diameter and multiples of 54. And
That is weird.
I explain it. I'm not responsible for this hypothesis. It comes actually from Nick Nelson, but he pointed out a few examples to me. I readily identified more. We have other researchers who continue to identify more of these 54-mile diameter vortexes.
Yeah, and I just want to interrupt really quick for 1 second because, like, saying that about these vortexes and stuff, that's the same with missing persons. Generally, the diameter that they're searching is that 50-mile radius, which to me is really weird when you're saying 54-foot, 54-mile diameter for this, and then 50-mile diameter for missing persons. I don't know. To me, it's like connections. But anywho's, please continue. I'm sorry I interrupted, but I just had to say that real quick.
If your listeners want to multitask and they go to Google Maps and they look at Bend, Oregon, what they'll find is that at the center of Bend, Oregon, there's a butte. I can never quite remember what it's called, Airport Butte or Pilot Butte, and mountains in all directions. You'll see 27 miles in all directions. It's an exquisite example of a 54-mile diameter vortex. And just to sum up, if I can, the equator of the Earth is a great circle around the Earth. But if you were to draw a similar equator, a great circle through the poles, that would give you a distance, which is the polar circumference. The circumference of the Earth through the poles is a nearly exact multiple of 27 miles. And so this gives us this hypothesis that the vortexes around the world are like fractions of the polar circumference of the Earth. You could think of that dimension, that distance, as being like a guitar string that gives you like a fundamental frequency, and the smaller fractions of that give you higher and higher notes of your fundamental frequency. And seeing a note come up. It's behind my camera a little bit, but
yeah, it says this is from Nicole Jones.
I got it, but yeah, thanks. So the sound analogy, I feel, is a nearly perfect analogy for how vortexes are working. So if you have any background in acoustics and music and sound and radio waves, I think you've got a real strong foundation actually for understanding how vortexes work.
I think it all kind of goes hand in hand, and I don't know. To me, that's how it makes sense, but to other people, it might be different.
I firmly believe that we are all like blind people feeling different parts of an elephant and having different experiences of it. And in terms of dowsing, we mentioned dowsing earlier. We didn't really dig into it, but maybe at this moment we could dig in.
Sure.
People are often familiar with the idea of a dowser using some means. Maybe it's a forked stick or a couple of bent metal rods or a pendulum in order to identify where to dig a water well. In its simplest form, dowsing would be locating a source for digging a well. But of course, people are highly inventive, and they didn't stop there, and they dowsed for minerals and all manner of things, lost objects and people, all sorts of things. They dowsed with, every kind of device imaginable and without any device. And there's tremendous disagreement, of course, and contention about how real dowsing is for all these things, dowsing for non-local objects, dowsing for what nutrients your body might need, etc.
Yeah.
Map dowsing. There's many, many different schools of dowsing, but in short, apparently people have some kind of mechanism for sensing underground water flowing and ore and mineral deposits and every manner of physical and non-physical thing. And I myself, I see what's there physically. I'm looking at maps, and I'm looking at what's there, and I'm looking at how the wind is moving and all manner of things, and I'm looking at what is unseen, and I'm feeling things, but I'm not generally using a dowsing device. But anybody can learn to do dowsing. But then we come to, do dowsers agree? And generally, there's very little agreement among dowsers, and there's as many different systems as there are dowsers themselves.
And there's naysayers too.
It doesn't mean that dowsing is not useful and reliable. There can certainly be some consensus and agreement among dowsers about what's a ley line. But I mean, what color is a ley line? I don't think we're going to get much agreement among dowsers. It's like blind people feeling different parts of the elephant, but ley lines can expand and contract and undulate and move and go above ground and below ground and collapse at equinoxes and sunsets or not, depending on who you ask. So I encourage people I've taught dowsing to people in a matter of a few minutes, and they've successfully dowsed for hidden objects subsequent. So I encourage people to learn the art of dowsing 100%, and that's a brilliant way to do your own energy work and figure out if what's right or wrong with your property and begin to heighten your sensitivity.
So I just wanted to add, we have T-minus 5 minutes and counting for our Spreaker, but as far as everything else goes, we can go as long as you want to. So as far as Spreaker goes, could you share with people your website, where to find you, where to get educated on these different ley lines and different portals, etc.?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for setting up this forum for us, and thanks to your listeners for listening, for their questions, and I'll thank you in advance for your emails. I love to get your emails. No matter, even if everybody thinks you're crazy, I'd love to get your emails. And there's a risk that I may share your story in an anonymized way. I'll say that. But I answer every email. And as I say, if you email me, energy@vortexmaps.com, I'll send you a free ebook. US Vortex is 54 miles wide. So thank you very much. And the main way to reach me, that email address, vortexmaps.com as well. And I just look forward to connecting with you.
Super cool. So yeah, as far as Spreaker time goes, we have T-minus 4 minutes and counting. What are some other places that people can look as far as vortices, vortexes, etc.? Where are the maps? Where are certain things they can find? I know a lot of it is on your website, but what are other websites that they can check out? Well,
for sure, I've compiled as many different researchers as I can at vortexmaps.com. I've contributed to the body of work, but one of my contributions has certainly been compiling other researchers. My friend Peter Champo, he's got an exquisite, extensive website, poetic visionary,